What's going on, guys? What's going on, Thai Squad? What's going on, everybody? So, Chris Paul has just signed a 1 year, $3.6 million deal to go back to the Clippers and to sign with the Clippers. And we know that Chris Paul has played for the Clippers before, with those Clipper teams that made the playoffs. Those Clippers teams that Chris Paul was a part of was amazing to see. And honestly, just thinking about those Clippers teams that Chris Paul was a part of, that made the playoffs, um, those teams were very close. This is a different team that Chris Paul is going to, and we all know that what Chris Paul can bring the the Los Angeles Clippers is some playmaking, because Chris Paul has made the championship with the Phoenix Suns, was close with the Rockets. Like, Chris Paul to me is the ultimate point guard. And if that trade back in 2011 or 2012 wasn't vetoed for Chris Paul to go to the Los Angeles Lakers to team up with Kobe Bryant, I would say that team that trade would be the start of super teams that we saw and now we saw before with a big two. And I would say that. I would definitely say that. But with that said, like, that trade was vetoed by David Stern at the time, the the um the commissioner at the time. And I would say if that trade wasn't never vetoed, Chris Paul would have a championship right now. But what Chris Paul has done for the game of basketball, it's just something amazing to see. We're probably not going to see something like what Chris Paul has done in his career, where this it going back to a Clippers team at the end of his career. Like, we could possibly see that with Russell Westbrook probably going back to OKC, because Russell Westbrook is still a free agent, I believe. And you just got a buyout from Bradley Beal. You just added Bradley Beal. Like, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have James Harden, you have Bradley Beal now. The Clippers do look like a championship team on paper. The thing is, for the Clippers, is adding Chris Paul, you're getting a 40-year-old point guard that averaged 8.8 points a game. Chris Paul isn't anymore a 28 points game point guard. Chris Paul is going to be there to help the young guys, like young point guards, and like a Cam a Cam um a Cam Maxey, going to help young point guards with the Clippers. Because ever since Chris Paul has been in the league, he has been that type of Jason Kidd, um kind of point guard. Except with Jason Kidd, Jason Kidd was more a passer. Jason Kidd really liked to pass the basketball. And later at Chris Paul's career, he wants to help the young generation of point guards that are coming into the league. Like, we've seen how Chris Paul helped Shea get where he's at. And when they see how Chris Paul helped Shea and see where he's at today in the NBA. Because Shea is a MVP, a finals MVP, won a championship. We've seen how Chris Paul has helped Shea get where he's at. We've seen Chris Paul help Devin Booker get to his first NBA Finals. We've seen Chris Paul help De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. We've seen Chris Paul help a lot of young players, a lot of young point guards, and been on a lot of good NBA teams. And we are sitting here today saying this might be Chris Paul's last year. This will be Chris Paul's probably last ride. And we could say that. We could say that with Chris Paul. He might be a all-time Hall of Famer. Like, we can put him in the point guard conversation with guys like Steph Curry, Ja, Anthony Edwards, LeBron, Kyrie. Like, we can put those guys in those conversations with Chris Paul. But when we say that Chris Paul, on one hand, is now going to a Clippers team that has a Bradley Beal that just got a buyout and had a no trade clause, there is something that with Chris Paul going back to the Clippers, it kind of seems the same way as Damian Lillard going back to the Blazers. That is what this whole thing seems like. Because with this saying that the Blazers, that Damian Lillard is going back to rehab going back to rehab with the Blazers and go back to his former team. We're seeing that now with Chris Paul. What if we've seen NBA players stay with one NBA team their whole career and not bounced around? What would we say about that? We would say that the part of if every player stayed with a team that they were drafted by for their whole career, or went back and went back and said, okay, let's go back and try to win a championship with the team that I played with before or the team that drafted me, don't you think NBA players would want to do that? Because if there was some type of thing where I know that every NBA player wants to win a championship, we don't see most players now today stay with one NBA team. Like we saw that with Kobe Bryant. We saw that with Tim Duncan, Dirk. We're seeing that with Steph Curry now. We don't see guys go back at the end of their career or at a point of their career and say, I want to go out as a player on the team that drafted me or the team that took a shot on me. Because I think if we saw NBA players, WNBA players, NFL players go back at a point where their careers started and they went back to their own like NBA team, WNBA team, NFL team who drafted them, we would say that those teams would be something that we're cussing and seeing. But when we're not cussing and seeing, like a Bradley Beal go back to the Washington Wizards. When we're cussing and seeing LeBron James winning a championship with the Cavs. When we're cussing and seeing Chris Paul now going back to the Clippers. Damian Lillard going back to the Blazers. We're cussing and seeing these guys go back to either a team that they had good success with and good process with, or they're going back to a team that had more that drafted them and gave them more pieces around them to win. Because now every team in the NBA wants to win a championship. We get that. We saw that with OKC this year. We saw that with different teams. And for Chris Paul to sign a 1 year, $306 million deal, if Chris Paul is some way decides at the end of his career, if Chris Paul decides at the end of the 25-26 season that he wants to come back, or if he's done Or if he wants to retire, we can look at Chris Paul and say 12 million assists. Broke records. Played for the Rockets, the Pelicans, the OKC Thunder. Made the finals with the Phoenix Suns. Played with Santonio Spurs and Pop. Like, Chris Paul has made it in the playoffs his whole career, or missed the playoffs. Chris Paul has to go down as the best point guard ever. And you can say, some that watch 90s basketball will say, well, this player was the best point guard. That player was the best point guard. Some will say that are watching basketball today, Steph is the best point guard. Kyrie is the best point guard. But when we say that, when it comes down to it, we know that Chris Paul is the ultimate point guard. But guys, sub if you're new and never give up your dreams. And I hope all of you guys are safe out there. And stay blessed, everybody, and peace.